I'm so pleased to introduce you to our newest guest on Voices of Inclusion. This is Dr. Elisa Glick. Hi, Elisa. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such an honor. I'm a big fan of your work, and it's truly my honor to be in conversation and in community with you.
Well, that feels like I feel exactly the same way about you. So let me just quickly introduce you for all the listeners and people who are reading Voices of Inclusion. So Elisa Glick, Dr. Elisa Glick, is the founder and president of Elisa Glick Consulting, but where you and your team worked with leaders and organizations to help them build more inclusive workplaces, communities, and cultures. And this is coming previously from your academic background. You were a professor, is it associate professor at University of Missouri at Columbia?
Yes, I
Yep.
was correct.
In
Yep.
English and Gender and Women's Studies. And
Hmm.
I love this part. You were the director of the Faculty Institute for Inclusive Teaching. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And Elisa and I became virtual friends through LinkedIn because I loved your posts. They resonated with me. They stoked something in my heart. And your words and your way of seeing the world were inspiring to me and felt very aligned with my own personal philosophy. And then we got to connect and become friends. And here we are.
It's wonderful, and thank you for that very warm introduction. And yeah, I feel the same way about you. It's like you're a kindred spirit, and I really appreciate well, your book, which is wonderful, and that kind of model of not having to be perfect, right? To make an impact, and that in fact sometimes it's when we let go of that and embrace our humanity that we can really access our power to be transformative. So I just love that part of you and your work, and in reading. I have things that I want to say about sort of similarities I see between us, but I'll um uh save that for later.
Well, I think that's the perfect segue to our first question. I always like to ask permission. Like, if we're going to have this conversation, we might as well go under the waterline and get to some deep truths and realities for
Mhm.
us and maybe generate some shared wisdom. So, are you willing to go there with me today?
I am always willing to go there.
Yes, I know that. And I love when people say yes because there's a sense of like, yeah, that's where the real conversation is. That's where we can really start to get some work done. So let's start here. As you know, I believe that everyone is a leader, whether your job title gives you that or not. You're a leader because of the way people are simply influenced by the way you present yourself to the world through your communication, through your habits, beliefs, emotions, etc. So I'd like you to share what kind of leader are you?
So lovely question. And if I can share it by way of a personal story, my answer by way of a personal story, which is um, my why for doing this work. So I am gay, and when I was young, I came out and was disowned by my family in very soul-crushing ways. Not that there's ever no an affirmative way to be disowned by your family, but it was very ugly. My mother's, back when people wrote letters, send me a letter saying, I'd rather see you dead at my feet than be a lesbian. And my sister said, I plan to get married and have a family, and there's no way that you could be a part of my life. And, um, my family was everything to me. And so it was absolutely devastating. I mean, I was cut off financially. I didn't have money for college, and just emotionally, it was really tough. And what I struggled with a lot was why my difference was so threatening to them. And um, ultimately, after many years of therapy, I'm not sure I really arrived at an answer to that. But what I eventually got to was the sense that um, that the person that I wanted to be in the world is somebody who celebrates difference,
Mm,
and not someone who sees difference as a problem or a threat. And that really remains the core of why I do this work and why I'm so passionate about it, why it's very personal to me. Uh, it was a core to my career as a faculty member, where my expertise was in queer studies, um, and my social justice work. And so, in starting my consultancy, the draw to really focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work, and to try to broaden my impact from beyond academia, and have the chance to work with different kinds of organizations and people, uh, and to help people, to give people the tools to do this work. So I would say that I'm in bringing that focus. I really try to bring a lot of humility to how I engage, to seeing each person as somebody that I can learn from. Um, and and if you can tell I'm getting a little emotional, is because even though I was disowned many years ago, and it's but somehow even now, talking about it, that was probably the most traumatic thing. It's definitely the most traumatic thing that ever happened to me. But I really try to use that in a positive way, in order to be somebody who um, can kind of stand in my integrity
mm.
around this work.
I just appreciate it so much, and I feel it too, and I thank you so much for already, like, we just went down under the waterline, and I hear a few things. One is people do want the tools. In my practice, certainly people are craving the tools because tools help us feel safe. Otherwise, it's really scary. We feel unprepared if we don't have that toolkit.
Mhm.
One of the tools you just shared is the tool of vulnerable storytelling, which when our work is steeped in our personal story, I find we're committed to it, we're engaged, we're going to see it through. And it keeps me too. I have a similar story. Like it keeps my purpose very alive for me, and it makes
Mhm.
me not want to give up. Like it is, this is what I do, this is my identity. And I hear that in you too.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And why, despite the ups and downs of political climate or challenges, I mean, this work is so much a core of who I am that it's doesn't feel like I have an option of walking away. Okay, can you tell I'm a
Yeah.
crier?
Me too. And I'm a crier, yes. And I've often felt that way. People ask like how I came to this work, and I often say the same. I don't know that I had any other option, right? I can't
Hmm.
imagine doing, I can sort of imagine other things, but it's going to have a flavor of this
Right,
work. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And in that respect, it's kind of it's amazing to me how, I was a professor for 22 years, and that work is very different, and yet on the other hand, I very aligned, right? Very,
Yeah.
very similar, because the same, core principles were there. And that, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you shared this, um, experience of being disowned by your family, which is one experience. I also think, by the way, that in my own journey, I have found this work to also be healing. And
Mhm.
when I am publicly healing on social media or with my clients, I think it gives my clients permission to also heal in spaces with
Mhm.
me, because in some way we've all had some experience of being misunderstood, disowned, not heard. And so that healing, I love that aspect of the work, which was incidental to me. I didn't know that that was part of this work.
Right. And if I may say so, I think that one of the challenges in for many of us doing this work is that it, especially if it's so personal, that it really requires us to continue that healing journey and kind of centering our needs, and you know, I've really discovered how there's a lot of emotional labor in being a professor, but in many ways, this work is much more so, and it cuts kind of, there's no intellectual distancing. It's
Right.
just much more sort of cuts to the core of it feels even more personal, as personal as all of my work has been throughout my career. And I think that really is one reason why it's important for us to take responsibility for doing our own healing and making kind of time and space for that. Um,
Yes. Yes. I agree. And I certainly am fortified knowing that there are people like you doing the work too and feel the same way, like just so deeply personally invested in the work. So I know I'm not alone in this, and that feels really good. Um, so along that, that narrative of being misunderstood, I wonder, what do most people get wrong about you when they first meet you?
you know, I'll I'll be the first to admit that I'm not really sure. I don't know how people tend to answer that question, but I will say that I think that historically I've really struggled with um, feeling very different from sort of people's perceptions of me. And one sort of easy example would be just I'm somebody who's started out um, being s- struggling to find my voice. I kind of hid in the back of classrooms. It really took certain uh, faculty members to say, "Hey, you've got great ideas. Speak up." Encouraged me. Uh, so I think struggling with feeling confident enough in who I am and in my voice um, has been something that's really been a lifelong journey for me. And I do know that certainly as a faculty member, students were often surprised to learn this about me. So that was a little information for me. But
Interesting.
I but yeah, I'm not so good at that answering that.
Yeah, it's hard to know what you've just given me a whole other understanding of this question, which is we don't always know what people think about us. We can ask and we'll get some version of that, but there's also a whole lot of other things that they might not even be sharing with us, so it's hard to know. Um, Along the same lines, just in thinking about your own self, there are ways in which we can misunderstand ourselves or change our own commitments. And I'm curious, this is one of the fan favorite questions, which is this: what commitments have you made that you no longer believe in?
Hmm. What can you tell me what you mean by commitments?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I think sometimes we're committed to things without being so conscious of it, and we live our lives
Mhm,
accordingly until we realize that pattern is actually not serving us. So I'm gonna
mhm,
change a commitment or I'm gonna change a habit. They may not be conscious, right? Or they could be very conscious. Like I was really committed to being in this type of relationship or being this type of job or having
mhm.
this type of family, and I just don't believe in that anymore.
Oh, I see. So you're very values based, which yeah. So I mean I think uh one thing that comes to mind has to do with I'm Jewish, and um, in light of the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine, uh, I w- I really have rethought a commitment that I used to have to Israel.
Mm,
Now, I that might not seem like to some people, like a massive, shift, but it really has been very difficult and enormous in my life. I do, one of the areas of work that I focus on is addressing anti-Semitism, and, um, a lot of folks that are interested in hiring people to talk about that tend to be supporters of Israel. So, publicly uh, taking the position that I am on the side of humanity, and that I support Palestinian liberation and freedom, has really taken a lot of courage professionally. It's also been challenging for me personally because of my family. Um, which, by the way, I uh, reconnected with many years ago. So that's been really important to me, to align my values and my work in this way. The people talk about the Palestine exception, or maybe you might
yeah.
also call it the Israel exception. And so it's been really important for me, to not be complicit, and without going into a lot of sort of detail about it, I'll say that for years I knew that I needed to, for myself, more deeply address these issues, but it was really hard for me because, well, you know the story about my family, right? So after doing all that work and repairing those relationships, and then my sister lives in Israel and is married to somebody who's Israeli, and all of my
Mhm.
nieces are, right? So to risk sort of feeling like you would lose all of that again because of this issue was challenging. Now, of course, that I in no way do I mean to compare my own struggles with the struggles of so many people who are experiencing violence and um, all sorts of incredible trauma, but it's been really important to me to to um, um, to learn more. That's something that I've really been doing, and to try to use my platform on LinkedIn to speak out and encourage uh, people to rethink their assumptions that, for example, anti-Zionism is equivalent to anti-Semitism.
Mm.
Just one
Mhm.
example. So,
I'm so glad you said the word courage. because I think when I first reached out to you late last year, that is really what I felt. I was like, I can only imagine how much courage it took to say what you were saying about your position on Palestine. And what I had the opportunity and the gift to observe how your followers responded. And maybe I'm biased. Well, I am biased, but like I see things through the lens of leadership. And I was like, look what's happening. You're implicitly giving people permission to be themselves and to believe what they really feel and make it safe to believe something that is risky and scary and but like truly authentic for them.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, thank you. I I'm really super, super committed to creating those kinds of spaces. You know that about me, but that's um really important to me, that where we can find space to be authentic, to maybe disagree, to have different perspectives and explore that, and do that also in respectful ways, but
Mm.
not not in ways that are kind of align with white supremacist niceness,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
really doing that sort of deeper work
yeah,
that you were pointing to. And
yeah.
so my kind of focus on courageous conversations in my work is really all about that.
Yes, I'm so glad that you were doing that work. Um, Elisa, what are you most grateful for in your life?
Oh, hands down, my spouse, Carolyn Sullivan, of 31 years. We just had our anniversary last week.
Congratulations.
Now we've not been legally married for 31 years, as of course I'm sure most folks know, since that when when we first met and we had our commitment ceremony in the 90s, 1995, uh, um, in on a beach in Provincetown. I never imagined that we would ever legally have the right to be married, and so um, uh, that's been really amazing and very healing, right?
Yeah,
To have my
yeah,
family be at my wedding, I mean, as you can imagine, was an incredible thing, and friends. And so,
yeah,
and my spouse is also not just my partner in life, but also my partner in work, because she's fantastic, does nonprofit consulting, owns her own business called New Chapter Coaching, and I am a strategic partner there, focusing on DEIB work for New Chapter Coaching. So that was a little scary to me, because I always thought the separation
yeah,
was a good thing, but it's been great, and she is just my biggest champion and advocate. And I know for a fact without her, I never would have had the courage to do so many things in my life. And one of them was leaving the academy, which I wasn't happy for complex reasons having to do with not having values alignment, among other things, with
mhm,
my prior university. And for years, Carolyn said to me, you don't have to stay. There's this whole world out there and I was like, oh no, who would hire me? Oh, all of that. And um, she loves to hear me say, you were right. And those are her favorite words, I think. Well, maybe I love you, then you were right.
yeah.
But but she is right a lot, and she was right for sure about this. So mostly I just have to kind of listen to her.
I am
Um,
so happy you found
yeah,
each other. I want to find her and I want to invite her to this interview series too. She sounds amazing.
she really is. She's incredible. She's makes an incredible impact in the nonprofit world.
Amazing. And I'm so glad you named her here. So important. Um, okay, we end this interview on the same question. It's kind of a fun one, but it's also, I thought it was a lighthearted one, but people take it deep sometimes. So here's the question. What is a semi-big decision that you have to make this month?
Um, well, I I've got a contract that's out there that is, well, the contract hasn't quite happened yet, but it's a really great opportunity that I'm excited about. And I've been working with this client on reconceptualizing the project. It's evolved, and so I think one of the big decisions will be kind of finalizing the shape of this project, which is about courageous conversations and also about supporting Jewish employees.
Oh,
Um,
yay, good.
so I'm really excited about that, and then I think that's my biggest one. But I will say that I'm I'm doing what I believe in marketing they call a soft rebrand. I'm not really a big
Okay.
marketing
Me
person.
neither. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm doing a little kind of facelift, if you will, of my website
Oh, cool.
around the Courageous Conversations piece. And so I'm making some decisions like a new tagline and things like that feel super exciting, but also a little scary, I'll admit.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Well, I'm rooting for you, Elisa, both on the proposal and on the website and the rebrand and everything you're doing. Of course, I'm rooting for you because the more impact you have, the more impact we have together because we're on the same aligned path. So I'm so championing you behind the scenes, and I'm grateful to know you. I'm grateful to be in community with you, and thank you again for having this conversation with me.
The pleasure is all mine. You're just such a beacon, and it's truly been great talking with you, and I'm looking forward to continued conversations.
Me too. Thank you.